All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today on this episode. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down below and follow along with more garden adventures as we get growing along here this season. It's getting warmer and warmer and warmer. Summertime is really hitting us. So at the beginning of summer here, I want to do just a little bit of a garden tour. But one of the things that I've learned last season as you do these garden tours, they seem to last for quite a while. So what we're going to do is we're going to split this up into 2 episodes. And we're going to start out right up here on the rooftop with our peppers. Now our peppers are up here, they're growing along really fine. If you saw the previous episode here just a couple of weeks back when we planted them up here on the rooftop. But as you can tell, with the temperatures already getting to be in the consistent 100s, I've set up a shade cloth setup here for them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put that up, we're gonna go in and check out those peppers. We're gonna go around and take a look at a couple of other things, probably our tomatoes, and I've also got some volunteers I also want to show you. I know we talked about volunteers in the last episode, but we're going to talk a little bit more about some volunteers that came up. I got a little story about them. So let's get growing. All right, these pepper plants are looking really good. They're looking really strong. Even with this heat wave and the temperatures getting into the hundreds, our plants are looking really good. Even these small ones are growing pretty strong. We're only seeing small, light amounts of maybe leaf burn. So most of these are looking really green, looking really nice here. Plants are looking strong, but this heat wave is just getting started, so we're gonna go ahead and put up our shade cloth anyways. Make sure these plants stay protected during the next week or so of some pretty intense heat. Let's take a look at this clever idea here I came up with. We've basically got some PVC pipe here, and we put in an attachment with a carabiner to attach to our shade cloth. It's in a 1/2 inch PVC pipe, which we have drilled holes so that we can take our shade cloth up and down to different levels. And it goes into a 1 inch PVC pipe that is cemented into one of our 5-gallon buckets. Now, one thing about this though is that each of these on each 4 corners, you would think would have enough weight in them to be able to hold those up during the wind, but they do kind of fall over, as I found out, so went in and braced them into these boards. It seems to have helped do the trick to help these buckets to stand really strong during the winds. But pretty basic setup there. All right, so there we go. We've got our shade cloth put out here, which give our pepper plants just a little bit of relief from some of the sun stress because they are right up here on the rooftop. They're getting sun completely all day long from morning till night without any shade at all during some of this hottest time of the year. So having this shade cloth is going to really help us maybe up the production, get us some really good growth going on, and hopefully lots of really good pods coming up here in the future. So next up on the garden tour here this episode is our tomatoes. We've got our row of tomatoes that we plant here along the fence line of our back alleyway. And in between the tomatoes, we've also planted out some melons. So we'll get down and take a closer look at those in just a moment here. But one of the things that we do got to get done today is our tomatoes are well grown up out of our buckets that we have them in here. And so at this point in time, what I want to do is I want to prune the tomato plant down to the bottom, up to about the line of where the bucket top is. And then we're going to fill it in with just a little bit more of this soil, which will be kind of a top dressing, because what we did is we added a bunch of organic general tomato fertilizer to our mix here. So it'll be kind of like a fertilization as well as bringing up the soil level a little bit more so that our plants can grow just a little bit more roots in its root system and hopefully get us some really good strong fruits as we get growing along here this year. You can already see that they got some flowers forming and some fruits getting ready to pop out here. So this fertilization should help them along really well. So I'm going to get along and get that done real quick, and we'll take a look at what we got growing here. So a close-up look of what I'm talking about, what we're doing here, is I cut any branch or sucker that was growing along the main stem there, all the way down to the bottom. So what we'll do is we'll fill this up now, and then what we'll do too is we'll continue to hard prune this plant all the way up to the bottommost fruit. And as those are harvested, we'll continue to prune it up. But these plants ought to grow really tall here in the next month or two. We should see a lot of good production off of them. So cutting them back drastically like that shouldn't be any problem at all for these tomatoes. So we've got the soil filled in there, just close to the top. Plenty of stem space here between the bottom and the lowest branch of the plant too. So one of the things we want to do is keep plenty of air up underneath of here and enough space so that when we're watering and or rain or anything like that might happen, any splash up from the soil isn't going to reach some of these bottom leaves, maybe cause us any sort of blight this year. So now that we got this one set up, I'm gonna go to work on the rest of them here just a little bit, but let's get down and take a look at some of these here. They're all looking pretty good, just like our peppers up above. Leaves are looking really green. Only seeing just minor amounts of damage on these lower leaves. But like I said, those will be pruned off here in just a little bit. Now what I want to talk about too is also in between the tomatoes, what we did is we planted out a bunch of different types of melons. Watermelons, cantaloupes, and whatnot down the way. Down on the end here though, we did plant out a pumpkin. So we've got a pumpkin going there. It's growing really good. Really starting to put out some leads here, which ought to start falling and grabbing onto the ground here. Probably take up most all of this space here in just the next couple of weeks. Right behind it though too, also you can see there's little red dots in there. And lots of strawberries. Get in there and start picking. I just picked some out the other day, had a good couple of handfuls, but I'll bet you we got a pretty good bowl size in there today. And strawberry patches starting to take off on us a little bit, heading down the fence line. But I'm not at all worried about that. Those things can take off and go everywhere they want back here and grow like a weed all day long. I'll take all the strawberries I can get. So back to the melons here real quick. This space again. Watermelon we planted out, didn't survive the slugs and the bugs and everything early on. We tried to give them some good protection and all of that, but they're still able to manage to get to them. So what we'll do is we'll replace in this space some squash. I've got some squash I'm going to be putting in. We'll do that in the next episode. We'll put that in there and fill out that space. I've got that to go. So I've also got some watermelons that have survived some of the damage and they're just coming out of it kind of right now. So they're just now getting ready to take off. Some cantaloupe as well. And more volunteers. Got some more volunteer sunflowers. And if you grow sunflowers anywhere, you're going to find sunflowers everywhere. These things will pop up all over the place. I did pull out quite a few of them. There's a couple I've let kind of go. We'll see how they go, see how far we let them go. But you can see all of our melons down the line are looking really good. Same with all of these tomato plants. And look at this cantaloupe. Looking a little limp, needs a little bit of water right now. We are in the hottest part of the day. But this is the strongest grower we've got out of all of our melons back here. So even pushing itself through the fence and into the other side there. So I'll be looking forward to some really good melons coming off of this plant for sure. Oh, and what garden tour wouldn't be complete without a visit from Carl? What's going on, dude? Yeah? It's a hot day, isn't it? For a black cat, that's got to be miserable at times. We do try to keep him inside in the air conditioning, though, as much as we can. But he's an outdoor cat, and he can't help but want to be outside. So one of the common themes that we've seen over the last couple of episodes is volunteers. We have several volunteers growing in the gardens around here, from melons to tomatoes. We just saw some sunflowers. We're going to talk about a certain volunteer here real quick. I'm going to link an episode up right now with an iCard to a story that I told, which basically tells how I got into doing some of these gardens and expanding my gardens around here. And a lot of the inspiration came from my neighbor's garden space that he has here along the back alleyway. Now each year he grows a bunch of different things. When I first moved here, I didn't grow very much, just a cucumber plant before, started with tomato plants after that. But with inspiration from the things that he's been doing there, I expanded my gardens and started learning more and more about different plants. Now, one of the plants that he grew just a couple of years ago, Now, this was probably 3 years ago. He grew a tomatillo plant right over here. Big, prolific tomatillo plant, had really nice fruits on it, and I got to learn all about green salsa and all of that sort of stuff. The next season, in my gardens over on this side over here, where we've planted our corn in the last episode, I had a tomatillo volunteer pop up then. And it grew just as big, just as nice, was able to make some cool sauces with that. And that was it. I didn't see any more volunteers the next season or anything as we started growing on other things. And this last year, I started working on the garden space over here, this way, along the garden fence, which I'll show you in just a second. But this year, 2 years after growing the volunteer over there, and I'm not sure if I transferred soil or what happened in the long run, or if maybe there were just a bunch of them that ended up over there and got buried too deep or something. But we ended up with a bunch of tomatillo volunteers that popped up out of nowhere. These plants are growing really big, and they're starting to shade out some parts of the garden beds that I set up. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to get rid of a bunch of them. We'll probably keep one in order to grow out some of those fruits, and we'll show you some of those as we get growing on this season. But let's go over and take a look at these plants. So along the side alleyway here, we built a couple of little raised bed garden beds here to utilize the space along the alleyway. We've planted out some onions right down there. And there's this plant here we'll talk about in the very next episode in part 2 of this garden tour that we're doing. Right up here, we got our tomatillos growing right up out of the ground, and not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 10 and 11 over here. We ended up with a ton of tomatillos growing. As you can tell there, they're completely shading out that garden bed back there. I do want those onions to be getting that sun that these ones are taking up right here. So we'll be taking some of these down. And as you can see, these things are covered in flowers. Covered in flowers. And down below, starting to see some of the very first fruits. Now they grow in this very thin type of shell around it. As they grow and mature inside of that, some green little tomatillo inside. All right, now as nice as all of these tomatillos are, and they are just starting to fruit, as we just saw, we just don't need all of them right here. I do have a couple that I'm saving over on this side that volunteered in the right space. They're a little smaller than these ones, but I'm sure they'll catch up just fine. But these nice plants are just gonna have to go. Purslane growing up underneath those tomatillos. But much better there. And we've opened up that space. Get some more weeding done. Clean it up just a little bit. Plant some more things down on that end. These onions are really going to enjoy the extra exposure there. Then we got Bug's Garden. Flowers are looking really nice. Got some catnip growing back here. Carl's been noticing it actually lately. He's been rubbing up around in it. Same with the cat grass. He likes to roll around inside of that. As you can tell, he's been beating it up pretty good. Up front here, we got some rosemary growing in out of the cinder block there we have for that bench. Another nice melon growing over here. It's really starting to take off really well. And then our other two tomatillos. One little bitty one down there. And this one here, which is really starting to take off now. So we'll still have plenty of good tomatillos, even though we got rid of all of those plants. And this poor thing over here, I just can't bring myself to actually let it go. But I'll put an iCard right up above right now to a video where I did a time lapse pulling this thing out of its garden bed in the back patio, which we'll be visiting next episode. And it was a really big, beautiful plant. I pulled it in and transplanted it in that pot, set it in the background, and that poor thing just wilted down and wilted down. But didn't really respond very well or come back very well. So we'll have to let that go soon. Now another kind of failure here I want to talk about a little bit is these raspberries. Put another iCard above for that episode about the raspberries, transplanting them into the pots. And we still got some good growth still going on there from a lot of the Primocanes, which is this year's growth. A lot of them are just not doing too well. I'm trying to keep them nice and wet and moist during the heat, but this is not the best option, not the best place for them. We've lost all of the second year canes. So I don't know, I'm gonna try to relocate this, I think, and find another spot. Now the blueberries. Blueberries are doing very, very well. They're responding really good to this place in the alleyway. Put an iCard above to the episode where we planted out our blueberries here. You'll want to check that episode out too. That one was kind of interesting there towards the end, as we had an issue with the neighbors right next door there that you'll have to check out if you haven't seen that episode. But blueberries are doing really, really well. Not going to get very much fruit on them this year, as I explained in that episode. But next year, the way they're growing right now, should be really, really good harvest of blueberries. So all right, we got to check out some things that we got growing here in the gardens. We got to get up on the rooftop and check out our peppers and put up the shade cloth. It's really, really hot, so they really, really need it. We got down to check out our tomatoes. We pruned them up, backfilled them in, and we should get to see some really good fruits coming out of those real soon. Those melons back there are looking really nice. Can't wait to see some fruits popping out of those. And you know, we got to check out these blueberries and talk volunteers with those tomatillos and my neighbor's garden. And in the next episode, we've got some things going on in the back patio that we want to talk about. Got to talk about those potatoes that we got coming up here as a harvest we'll be doing real soon. So look forward to that, as that episode's coming up this next week. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything at all, you know, hit me up in the comments section below. Give this episode a big thumbs up. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Follow along with more garden adventures here on the Urban Gardener. And I'll see you again on the next episode. let's just do that, okay? Before we start sweating all over the place. Because it is hot up here, really hot. Okay. Super, super, super hot. Oh boy. Okay, so hot we can't even keep these cameras rolling without them crashing on us and being in the sun. All right. It's hot. I am sweating like crazy. All right. All right, so that's gonna later this week I'll publish. We got coming up as well in our garden adventures here, blah, blah, blah. Let's try that again. Did open up some space for us there and get some light into some places that needs that sort of light, and I shouldn't have went there either. Shade cloth, we've looked at our tomatoes and we planted them in. That's a car just rolling by, interrupting what I was doing. It was really loud. All right, we're gonna roll through this one more time.